What's up and welcome back to the Kinda Funny Screencast. Of course, I'm Tim Geddes and I'm joined by, from Pixel Circus, Saige Ryan.
Oh, hello, friends.
Oh, hello. How was Star Wars Celebration in just a couple
We
sentences?
gotta know.
It was incredible. It was chaotic, and it smelled a little funny.
There you go. That's a convention. They're back, baby. And rounding out the group this time is the sad boy himself, Barrett Courtney.
I am what you made me, Tim.
Yes, that's exactly it. Carboni once again can't join us. He has Star Wars work to do. He's a fancy boy doing fancy things. Still so cool to have one of our own, just fucking rocking it on the Star Wars Celebration stage. So cool to see all the stuff he was in over the last couple days, like the last week, all that stuff. So he'll hopefully be here next time. He was supposed to be here this time, but things happen. So we'll hope to have him next time. We'll get his thoughts on the previous three as well.
But
But
today,
today,
switch out next time.
are you out next week? What's happening? We'll have to figure it out. I don't know. But stay tuned. People are going to be here each and every week talking about Star Wars, Obi Wan Kenobi, because this is the Kinda Funny Screencast. Each and every week we get together to talk about the latest in TV, movies, and trailers. Of course, you can get it on youtube.com/kindafunny or roosterteeth.com. You can also get it as a podcast by searching your favorite podcast service for Kinda Funny Screencast, and we'll be right there for you. If you wanted to get the show live as it's recorded and ad-free, you got to go to patreon.com/kindafunny, just like our Patreon producers Gordon McGuire, Molecule, and Fargo Brady have done. And I am pleased to announce that it's a new month, and that means a new Patreon Platinum tier reward, and it is this absolutely amazing, kind of funny Top Gun Maverick inspired shirt designed by the one and only Cameron Kennedy. I can't have a new favorite movie of all time without turning it into the Kind of Funny logo. That's just how things
Goes with
go
your
here.
mustache.
Exactly. It's the whole. I was saying this before we went live to Saige, but it's like the worst thing about shaving a mustache for a bit for a episode of a show just means I have the bit forever following me. So y'all are welcome.
At least you'll have the shirt, Tim, and then you can wear the shirt with the mustache, and people will be like, Top Gun,
yeah, exactly. That they're like, this guy has a problem, or this guy just watched Top Gun Maverick, in which case it's not a problem. It's just that's how life works now. But in addition to all of that, Stranger Things Volume 4 so far, our review is up on the Kind of Funny Screencast feed. Again, find that all the same places you can find this that I just mentioned. But without further ado, I want to get right into it. This is the big one. This is kind of the one we've been waiting for, the reunion between Obi Wan Kenobi and the artist formerly known as Anakin Skywalker. Saige, I want to start with you. What did you think of this episode?
This episode was incredible. What's wild is I was thinking about it this morning because obviously we all watch it when we're a little bit like loopy in the evenings after a full day. So I was kind of recapping in my mind this morning and I was like, that whole episode was a chase scene. And I started to criticize for it, but I had so much fun watching that I don't really have any complaints still about this show. I enjoyed every moment of the chase. It didn't feel repetitive in the moment. It was only upon reflection that I was like, he was literally running for that almost entire episode. But I also sat there and like squirmed in my seat and squealed a whole bunch the whole time. Obviously, this is the Vader we never got to see really, which is also really interesting. It's the most brutal Vader that I think that we've ever seen, which was one of the most impactful parts for me is like, we know Vader's the biggest, baddest guy, right? Like know that he has committed atrocities and we know that he is just like, created this horrific war. But like to watch him on an individual basis, not just kill people, not blow up a planet, which is this very like abstract thing to view happen, not grab a general of his own empire and strangle them, but like just walk by and murk civilians was wild. I was freaking out. What about you guys?
Barrett, what'd you think?
I really liked this episode. It was everything that Saige said. Also, like with the context, right? Of like this is Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor like being back playing these characters finally together for the first time in 17 years, which is insane. And I loved the buildup of it, of like kind of like it starts off as almost like a speed walking chase, and then it just gets faster and faster and faster and faster throughout the episode. And I did really enjoy that, because I did notice that of like it does feel like one long chase scene, but I love that we still get the kind of smaller moments, right, of, you know, Obi and Leia at the beginning. We need to talk about the "Are you my real dad?" moment, because that was just absolutely fucking heartbreaking.
Oh my God.
God.
That hit me in a way that I did not expect, and got me to tear up in a way that I did not expect. Going from there to, you know, meeting I forget her name, but the woman, I think her name is Tala, maybe, the woman from Game of Thrones, who is like the kind of like an insider in on the Empire, but still helping Jedi and stuff like that. The name drop of Saige, you'll probably know how to actually say his name, is I think Quinlan Voss.
I think it's Kinlan Voss.
Kinlan Voss, yeah. That name drop. And then just the moment of, you know, you go on ahead, Leia. I'm gonna distract him, and you know that it's not gonna go any way we want it to from here on out. And it's just, it was visceral. It was heartbreaking. I loved it up until the very last moment. And that's all I have to say about that in a general sense.
For now. Ooh, a little tease for what's to come later in the conversation. I definitely loved the hell out of this episode. I'm a little conflicted on where I feel about it quality-wise, and I think as like we keep doing these Star Wars shows, I kind of feel like that's more and more just kind of becoming the sentiment of I look at these things where this kind of delivered what I'm looking for and a lot of what I didn't expect from this. This show is simultaneously giving me everything I expected to get out of it in terms of like, we got to get Obi-Wan and Vader back. We have to make that make as much sense as it possibly can. We need to see the rematch. We need to have that all happen. We're getting all that. What I didn't expect was the Leia factor. I didn't expect the kind of like lone cub aspect that we've seen before in like Mandalorian, and we've seen before in many other forms of fiction with Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. And I didn't expect this to be as depressing and slow of a story. And I don't think that that's a criticism. I think that they are definitely using this as a character piece. And I think that that's where Kenobi can kind of flex most at this point. It is just kind of, it's weird where this, I usually say this as a compliment, but I think here it's where it's kind of catching me off guard a bit. Like the Vader fight itself felt caught between prequel era and original trilogy era in terms of its fighting and how it was presented to us. And I think that it kind of I'm gonna need to rewatch this one to like really kind of sit with it and see which moments are gonna stick with me as like all-time greats, because I think that there are obvious moments that are incredible, and I think that seeing Vader walk down that town and just murder people as violently as he did, dragging that woman behind him, like that stuff was like, whoa, we've never seen this before. And it really stepped up what we saw from Vader in even Rogue One, of him like walking through the infamous hallway, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about the Obi-Wan fight where I found myself multiple times stopping and being like, do I like this or do I not like it? I don't know. And like the whole time I'm like, when's he going to ignite the lightsaber? This is going to be such a moment. And it wasn't.
Yeah. No,
it just kind of happened. And that's the type of thing that I was like, huh. But then we'd be seeing the fight of them, like with Vader just being a ninja and like this hulking dark mass having his lightsaber off and like hiding in the shadows and stuff. Like I thought that was super rad, especially with the use of the fog, which was very original trilogy, was getting a lot of Empire vibes of the Luke Vader fight in the you know, where it's all like foggy and shit. And I loved that, seeing the red and blue sabers. Like there was a beauty to the cinematography of it all. But then every once in a while, I guess I'm just still, Vader's a tough one to get right, because he was in the original trilogy and he moved a very specific way and it was limited, you know. Then we get the prequels. We know what lightsaber fights can look like where they're all like crazy. And I think with this one, when we see Vader kind of move around more nimbly in a non-animated form, I guess I'm not used to it. And I think that even in Rogue One, seeing him walk around, not the hallway scene, but the scene on Mustafar, like there's a goofy quality to Vader that I feel works in the context of the original trilogy being classics and like the way that those movies like look and were made.
Being
But in
1977,
this,
yeah.
exactly. Like, but seeing Vader in this, it's like there's multiple moments I'm like, this just, it feels goofy, even though we know he's a badass, and they prove he's a badass in this. Like, I guess an example of a shot I'm talking about is when we have Vader and Obi-Wan in the desert, and Obi-Wan kind of looks at him, looks left, looks to the right, and then just runs off.
Like runs off.
And it's like, this is goofy. And like,
Yeah.
it should be a little bit more visceral and scary. And I know what they were going for, but like at multiple points where I was supposed to be feeling one thing, I was feeling something else. And I do think maybe I just wasn't expecting certain stuff. And at the end of the day, I was not expecting this much of a depowered Obi-Wan. And I did not expect them to focus this much on him being completely out of touch with the Force, and seeing him get his ass kicked and the fire and him getting pulled through. Like, for all my complaints, there is so much shit that I'm like, I am in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think him getting his ass kicked was maybe my favorite part of the episode. Actually, not necessarily just the fight itself, because I agree there were moments of the fight where it was like, him running. I get what they were going for, and I think that what they were going for is, and what they've been doing for these first 3 episodes, is Obi-Wan is currently a bit of a coward.
Yeah.
And he showed his cowardice in a few different ways. He showed it emotionally, he showed it physically. He showed his inability to like step up and be the Obi-Wan that we know from, specifically prequels Obi-Wan. And I think that they are really highlighting how far he has fallen, because like there's no Jedi Order. There is no Obi Wan Kenobi, and hasn't been for 10 years. And that is enough time for me to get on board with him being completely disconnected from the Force. He hasn't ignited a lightsaber in 10 years.
Yeah.
I think of like any physical skill that I have. I was a gymnast as a kid and a teenager. It's been 10 years. I'm not going to be able to do that. And if I try to, I will break my leg 100%. So watching him look, and they really committed, I think, on making him look extra scruffy this episode. So in that fight, when he's holding the saber and he like vaguely remembers what he's supposed to do, but doesn't have the strength or agility for it. And you can see his hair is a mess and he's scruffy, and they made him look bad. And like, that's tough. It's Ewan McGregor. It's a beautiful man. And they made him look like shit in that scene.
Yeah.
And I think that it like spoke so much of how like weak he was.
Yeah, I do like again, what they were going for, because I could see it, of like they wanted that fight to be awkward, right? And it is this very emotional moment where he's seeing his brother for the first time in 10 years. And actually see him for what he is now, right? And it's one of those weird things. It's everything that you were saying, Saige, of just like he hasn't done this in such a long time. He's not gonna be this like badass superhero that everybody's expecting him to be, right? And so it was awkward, and I think it was meant to be awkward, but I think the type of awkward that it was at moments it didn't come off like the right type of like awkward that they were trying to go for. Because kind of like running off to the side was like, that was like almost a comedic beat. And so, again, I know what they were going for, but it just like the way that almost like the timing of that shot and stuff like that. Like I wonder if there could have been another shot or another angle that were shown that could have worked a little better.
Agree.
And also like I do kind of like. Because, we were expecting in this show, like, for him to turn the saber on for the first time in 10 years. We felt like that was going to be a badass moment, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And I actually like that a lot. And it's because it's very much of the, it harkens back to, the kind of old storytelling trope of, like, where you try to be this thing too soon in your journey, right? There's the shot of... I think back, I don't know why to this specifically, but like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, right, where Miles looks up at the Spider-Man suit in his reflection, and halfway through the movie, he's not fully there. He doesn't fully see himself in the Spider-Man suit. And then when we get like him coming back and actually becoming his own Spider-Man, we get that same shot, but he's fully in there and stuff like that. And I think that's something similar here, where Obi is like he feels like he's forced to being used this lightsaber. And not actually wanting to. And I do think if they're playing it out like the way that I think they might be, like I do think we're going to actually get like him turning on the lightsaber.
Obi-Wan is
and,
back
and it's
for a
Obi-Wan.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like it was weird and awkward in that moment, but in that case I did like it. But yeah, everything else in that fight, like Jesus Christ, like Ewan talked about in interviews of like, there were some moments like filming where like Vader would pop out and I would actually like scream a little bit because he was so scary. We got to see that, I'm pretty sure, of like where he literally pops out of nowhere.
Yeah, he was a horror movie villain.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the use of silence. It's so not Star Wars. Like it
so
again,
wasn't Star Wars.
The one time we got that was in Last Jedi with the Star Destroyer thing, right? Like so it's like we got it twice in this episode. Like they did it multiple times of setting up like, yo, you were being stalked by Vader and like he's about to fuck you up. And how he fucks him up, it's so much more brutal than I would have ever imagined this fight, this rematch to end. Like him lighting it on fire and dragging him through is like, and especially with the lines of dialogue, it is, as Carboni would say, it's Shakespearean. Like it's just like, I love how they committed to that whole vibe. I will say it felt a little bit I feel like I need to rewatch it to understand his injuries because it felt so violent and like he was getting burned. And then you see him and he just looks like, I don't even know, like minorly hurt.
Oh
like,
no, the like
droids come and pick him up. You can see, he is
fucked up.
Singed.
But like his face didn't look it. Like
that's true. They definitely went the movie pretty route of not really fucking up his face, but like the way he was laying was down on his side like that, and that entire side is destroyed, like borderline Anakin burned on some of it.
Which is interesting, but I just think that knowing what happened to Anakin, like, and granted, he literally caught on fire and we saw him go, but it's like that happened real quick, and it's just like for somebody that is this out of touch with the Force, like I would think. Like if he had the Force, I could be like, oh, it's healing. Like, he has a protection. He has some shit. But for this character that is supposed to be at his weakest, I just thought that for how brutal it was, I don't think that we saw the ramifications of it for as brutal as that seemed to be. However, how likely is it that this is how we get our fucking flashbacks, y'all? He's gonna end up in a Bacta tank, and we're gonna get some Clone Wars flashbacks.
No.
The Boba
I think it's inevitable. I think it's gonna happen.
I don't know if this is a Bacta tank injury. I don't know. I hope that it isn't a Bacta tank level injury. We've already seen one Bacta tank this show. I've had enough. Vader can have his. I don't want to put everybody in a Bacta tank.
Boba Fett had a Bacta tank every episode, and we've only gotten one so far in 3 episodes. They need to up their Bacta tank.
I think that we have to consider the balance between the series, right? We got to factor in all the Bacta tanks across Mando, Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan, and I think that we're ratioing still very high.
Yo, speaking of flashbacks, though, not necessarily a flashback, but we saw Hayden Christensen. We saw him standing in the desert. Didn't expect that. Out of all the ways to get Hayden involved in this show, I was not expecting him to be a live vision that's not a Force ghost, none of that stuff. Just that's him.
Yeah.
Question, what do you think that was? Do you think that was Obi-Wan just so overcome with guilt and post-traumatic stress that he is simply seeing things within a desert, because we all know the effect that deserts have generally on people's minds when you're out there for too long? Or do we think that Anakin was Force projecting in some capacity, because in the next scene, they know that he's there? Not necessarily Force projecting, but like creating that image essentially within his mind, communicating through the Force to Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Yeah. That's kind of was my read on it. I don't think I thought that like deeply about it, but I think you're right. But I did think the fact that it was that combined with the next scene of them knowing where he was, and then getting the scene of Obi-Wan feeling Vader, those were shot similarly.
Oh my God, the scene of him feeling Vader.
I know.
So can we talk about it? We're going so out of order. I even pulled up
really
like an
quick,
order of the episode to try and go in order.
Just before we move off of this point, right? I think it might be like an in-between. It's not... To me, it felt not so much of like Vader specifically, like kind of like being like, hey, I'm like looking for you. But to me, it felt more of the other side, that like Obi feels his presence is coming, you know, and the only like thing he really knows of besides him burning alive is like that image of him being, you know, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader without the suit, right? So that's kind of how it read to me in that moment. I would have to go back and watch it again to kind of see any other interpretations, but
yeah.
Real quick before we move on, let me tell you about our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. I love MeUndies from head to toe, all over my body. If you don't believe me, of course, right now, I'm wearing the MeUndies shirt. You can tell by the little tag going on right there, right? I got the MeUndies lounge shorts going on. Of course, I got the undies, and then boom, MeUndies socks, baby. That's how we do out here at KindaFunny. I love being soft head to toe in the micro-modal fabric. You already know all about that, but if you don't, let's face it, summer's sweaty, but your butt doesn't have to be. With MeUndies light and breathable micro-modal fabric, you can stay comfy and cool all summer long. They have super fun seasonal prints and tons of styles to choose from, but if you just like classic black, that's totally cool too. They got a bunch of just bold colors for you to go for. They have super fun seasonal prints, tons of styles, and sizes extra small to 4XL, so you can bring the beach to your butt without ever leaving your living room. MeUndies has a great offer for all of you first-time purchasers. You can get 15% off. If you sign up for their free-to-join membership, you can apply that 15% off to their already discounted membership prices. To get 15% off your first order and 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/KindaFunny. That's MeUndies.com/KindaFunny. Tell them Tim Getty sent you. Shout out to Chime for sponsoring this episode. No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got bills due. Good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early without direct deposit. That's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. But Chime is about more than just getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and optional savings account. So what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. Get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. Get started at chime.com/KFgames. That's CHIME.com/KFgames. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA. Members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on payer. Get started at chime.com/KFgames. Shout out to Credit Karma for sponsoring this episode. Want a new credit card but not sure how to choose? You don't need to apply for the first offer that you see in the mail. Credit Karma can help you zero in on the right option for you and apply with more confidence. I love Credit Karma. I've been using it for years to check my credit profile, make sure everything is good and on the up and up. Credit Karma uses your credit profile to show you offers that are tailored to your financial situation. Credit Karma partners with a wide range of card issuers, so you can be sure that you're exploring all sorts of options. Best of all, Credit Karma uses your credit data to show you your chances of approval before you even apply, helping you apply with more confidence. Comparing cards on Credit Karma is 100% free and most importantly, will not affect your credit score. That is huge. Credit Karma, create your own karma. Ready to find the right card for you? Head to Credit Karma and check out your personalized mix of offers today. That's creditkarma.com or hit up the Credit Karma app to find the right card for you. That's creditkarma.com. And now we're back. Question for y'all. Was Orden and Luma, is that a reference to something when they had their fake little code names?
I wasn't able to track this reference at 1 o'clock in the morning. I will happily look it up.
I felt like it was just like a, when, non-Star Wars fans try to name Star Wars characters, like even Cameron Kennedy in our live chat called Obi Wan at some point Obert Kenobert. And so, like, I wonder if it was just kind of that of like this, Leia, I think, is the one who names them, right? Like, I don't know if they discussed beforehand of like, so I think that was just like a, here's my dad, his name is Orden, and I'm Luma because our names start with L and O and shit like that. That's kind of how it read to me.
That's also how it read to me. I didn't catch it as like a wink. I did look up really quick on Star Wars fandom. Luma, the only thing that comes up is Luca was a Tuca female that was taken by her owner to the planet Batu during the war between the First Order and the Resistance, which doesn't make sense to be referenced here. But that's the other time that name seems to have come up.
I love how Obi-Wan blows it in that scene too. Like, hold on, like we need to talk about Freck and the bootlicker that Freck is, and the piece of,
my god,
and it's done so well. Like, I know there's like just the kind of like slight commentary that they have here of like this friendly well,
the most heavy-handed thing I've ever seen. I loved it.
Well, slight commentary for people who can't read into things. The friendly face, I'm just an ordinary guy. Oh, but then, there's an Empire bumper sticker on the back of my car here. Oh, yeah, that Empire, they're great, right? Who wouldn't ask for some order, Like, so good, and like the way that he's being a friendly face the entire time, even when he picks up the stormtroopers. I love that interaction. And just like the way that Obi fucks up the cover, and then like how they try to recover. Obi and Leia like played so well off of each other in that scene, and then to like end it with like, you know, Freck's going to the checkpoint. He's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fine, and he's like, you might want to check these fucking weirdos out. And it's like, you fucking bootlicker, you piece of shit.
I'm gonna be real Jewish about this, because there were like 3 moments in this that I was like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing. We're doing like a World War II thing here, in the sense of there were multiple parts. One was the carvings into the walls in the like safe house. I was like, okay, right? Like, is this through a Jewish family lens? Maybe, in my brain. But also that, and then just the combination of him being in the car and just being like, yeah, that Empire, right? And we've never really seen the civilian engagement with the Empire before, in the like neutrality of it all.
Yeah. We've always seen like the opposing side of the Empire.
Exactly.
Never of just
We
like
have
people
seen
who exist under it.
Exactly. We have seen people that are impacted by it negatively, whether it's civilians that are just impacted by the Imperial presence on their planet, or literally rebels. And then we have seen people that are part of the Empire. And to see somebody who is just a pro-Empire guy, that was wild. And of course they made him like really like personable and seem really nice.
Was it Zach Braff?
I don't know who that was. It sounded very familiar, though.
So I thought it was Seth Rogen.
IMDb.
When he was talking, I thought it was Seth Rogen, and then I looked in the credits, and Zach Braff is credited. It doesn't say
that's got to be Braff then, yeah.
So I think it must be him, which is like a fun choice.
It reminded me of Rogen, but I was like, it's not like Rogen has like almost like a deeper like grumble in his voice.
Rumble's
like,
a good word.
Yeah, and so I know we're jumping all over the place. I apologize.
Real quick, well, I want to stay on this part on the because I loved this scene, and I think that they balanced the humor with the reality of these stormtroopers, like continuing that stormtroopers are kind of idiots. Like there is the joke side of it that's like referencing the original trilogy and them always missing and all that stuff. But I feel like we've had enough of it now from Mandalorian and from like this and other examples where they are just real people. And so we're starting to see that like they're not all the same type of stupid. And I think that kind of like makes it less of a joke and more of like, no, this is just the reality. These are people that were drafted that aren't necessarily qualified for the type of roles, these militaristic roles that they're put in. But having that forced tension of Leia and Obi-Wan being in the back of the truck with them and the conversations that they were having, like I thought was handled so well. And when Obi-Wan blew the cover, I was like, this is so lame. I hate this. But then for them to use that as the stormtrooper, like totally just buying into the next lie that Obi-Wan did, I thought was great. And it totally made up for it. And it allowed the amazing moment between Obi-Wan and Leia of him talking about her mother and
of course
him
he can't
seeing
lie.
her in it. Oh,
Obi-Wan's always been a dweeb. Obi-Wan has always been a dweeb and a narc, and Obi-Wan is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. But like, you know what I mean? Like he was Jedi Council. Qui-Gon challenged the Council. Obi-Wan was like, okay, I'm kind of just here. I kind of don't want any trouble. You know what I mean?
Like, Dad, stop embarrassing me. Like, I just want to be like cool in front of the other like nerds here. You know?
Anakin, don't get me in trouble. Quit it. Just listen to the people.
Come on.
So like, of course he can't lie, and also obviously he's very distracted. He's very fixated on the Anakin thing. But of course, Leia can. Yeah. Absolutely. I will reference again that the first thing we ever get to see Leia do in the original trilogy is lie. She shows up and she says, I am a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan. To Vader, the scariest presence in the galaxy. Of course, as like a 10-year-old, she was sitting there like, I've got the story. Don't worry about it. Her parents are politicians. She was raised to lie. And I think that was iconic.
Yeah, it was so good. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think Obi-Wan was in love with Padme now?
Dude, I'm telling y'all, this for me, I was like, oh, did they seriously just drop this 2 weeks after we did our episode 3 rewatch? Yo, there is enough there, and I'm telling you that there is truth to it. And the thing is, I think there's enough inconsistencies overall, and there in terms of the stories that are being told across all of the different kind of mediums at this point. But I do think that that there at some point were drafts of the original of the prequels where that was the intention, that there was some form of love triangle to some extent.
Yeah, and I brought it up when we did our episode 3 rewatch because like it's not like that's what his final kind of version of the movie was supposed to be, but there was just subtle like bones there where it's like, okay, I think he was trying to do something here. It didn't come off that way to me, especially like now with all the stories that we've gotten with Obi-Wan, you know, like to me at least, you know, he has only ever loved Satine. And so for me, that felt more of like she was important to him in a sense of just like all the things that they had gone through together. Also, just thinking back on how important she was to Anakin and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how that scene read to me more so than anything else. But that's also me just being like I just want him to, you know, stay a sad boy who, you know, just sad over his dead fake girlfriend Satine.
Yeah. I think I might be on the ship. I think I might be in. I think I'm boarding.
Choo-choo, let's go.
I think I'm boarding. I think it was really cute. I don't think it's true, but I'm going to ship it.
Okay.
I think that he, one way or another, I think it's like intentionally not interpreted even maybe by him. I don't think he actively was in love with Padme. I think he feels extremely responsible for her death. He feels extremely responsible for the outcome because he feels responsible for everything Anakin has done. And one way or another, he loved Padme. In a way that might not have necessarily been interpreted romantically, but he loved and cared about her very, very much.
Yeah.
In a way that made this very painful. But what if they kissed?
What if they just what if? So two potential theories that at this point I think are just becoming all but confirmed by this episode that we started last week with episodes 1 and 2, but I think now are even more. It's happening. One, we're getting Qui-Gon shit. Like it's an inevitability in some way, shape, or form. We are gonna get him, and it's gonna be awesome.
He's gonna come in. I'm telling you. I think it was last week where I said like he's gonna come at the end of episode 5, right before the finale, to hype up our boy Obi-Wan.
That's when we get the real Obi-Wan back.
Yeah, and he's like, "Yo, you have lost your way, and I know. I'm sorry. I left you with all of this stuff with absolutely no instruction, but you have lost your way, dude."
Dude, I hope he says, "Dude." And then the other thing that is like we said it last week, but now it's 100% locked for me is Reva is 100% going to be mad at Obi-Wan for not helping the kids out or whatever, because we get the dialogue lines from Yoda being like, only pain you will find if you like look at that. And it's like those specific moments. And it's like they were cutting that with the Reva stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. Y'all are definitely getting this ready to make a lot of sense. And I appreciate that. I thought Reva was much better utilized in this episode than the first two. Having said that, what she's doing right now, it's still just kind of the same thing, kind of on repeat, where she's just always a little bit behind in the chase. But I think that adding the dynamics with the rest of the Inquisitors, now that the Grand Inquisitor's out of the way, makes it a lot deeper. And her dealing with the fifth brother, Han, I loved that dynamic, and I think that it adds just a level of depth that I was missing the last two episodes from her character.
And that's something that's like kind of like talked about in like other pieces of media with the Inquisitors, right? Of like, there's a lot of, you know, they're technically a group together, right? But they don't really fight for each other, right? They don't give a shit about each other. And I loved that we got to actually see that in this show of like more of the infighting and, you know, the fifth brother being like, that chair is going to belong to me and stuff like that. And him trying to take the credit of finding Obi-Wan on the mining planet and all of this stuff. And her kind of snapping back with the like, take the credit, but you know where I'm going to stand at the end of all this. And it's like they all believe in themselves so much to a definite fault. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, especially like them kind of like continuing down this hole of like, yeah, it seems like he's going to pay for the Grand Inquisitor's and then Vader cuts her off. I don't think she fully says death. You know, and then Vader being like, if you get this done, like, yeah, I will make you the Grand Inquisitor. I think that all of that's very interesting, especially what we know from like Rebels and stuff like that of like, how are they going to kind of go down this, continue down this hole of like, where is he at? Is he actually dead? I don't think he is, because I think it'd be very weird to have this one guy be the Grand Inquisitor and then have just another dude who looks exactly like him be a Grand Inquisitor later down the line. whatever. And yeah, my only like main kind of head scratcher this episode was the very end with Reva, where Leia runs into her at the end.
Captured again.
Yeah, that was where I was like,
sorry,
all
the
right.
princess is in another castle.
Yeah. We see the dead pilot, which is really sad, but it felt like just one of those like, all right, so
this is where we're going.
Yeah, we're going on repeat for the next like episode or two and stuff like that. And you know, maybe there's going to be like a different context where it doesn't feel super repetitive. But I didn't love the, you know, Leia's getting captured again bit. I know it's them trying to like make sure she continues on this journey with Obi-Wan, that they like get together again, that she's not just going back to Alderaan and save so we don't get any more of her. Because I imagine when they were shooting this and writing this, they were like fully in on like Leia and wanting to see as much of her as possible.
And Vader, right? Like I feel like Leia has to meet Vader at some point. And like it doesn't have to be during this show, but I feel like with the way that these Star Wars shows work, I feel like they're gonna want, because she references him in A New Hope as if she's met him before. And granted, there's many years in between that she could have met him after this initial situation. But I think her being captured here is like setting up some level of confrontation between them.
Yeah, I can see that, which is also terrifying. The idea of Reva bringing her to her father, who is Darth Vader, and she doesn't know. That's all horrifying and wild and very, very interesting to me. The other thing that I found interesting about Leia during this episode in particular is there were a few moments that I feel like nodded to her being force sensitive. Specifically when they're standing in the little hideout and Tala, did we say that was her name?
Tala.
I think it's Tala, yeah.
Tala.
Who was so dope.
Was phenomenal.
So good.
I'm obsessed with her. Yeah. I love her so much.
And when she showed up, I was like, oh, Game of Thrones lady.
Yeah.
I totally forgot she was casted in this. And I was like, oh, shit, yeah, she's like working for the Empire. Yeah, right. She's a bad guy. And then the way they flipped that on you, it's so good.
I got. When they flipped it, I was like, yes, let's go. Like, they totally surprised me.
Also,
Sorry,
really quick, just the tiny moment of the stormtrooper getting sliced in half by the thing.
Yes,
I just wanted to shout that out just really quick. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So when she's speaking about it, and Leia is asking questions about the Jedi, and they're like, has everyone that has come through here been a Jedi? Is that all of the people that you're essentially smuggling out? And she was like, no, the Empire is even coming for anybody who's force sensitive, including children. And they immediately cut to a close up on Leia's eyes. And it shows to me, not only are they telling us, because we know, obviously, I think she knows at this point. She feels something. She was asking earlier Obi-Wan what the Force felt like,
which is so cool.
It's so cool. So I think that at this point, it tells us that she knows that she has some kind of connection to the Force.
Yeah, she's kind of putting the pieces together, because that's how it read to me in the first like 2 episodes as well. Like where she's talking shit to her cousin, that felt like not something she actually knew, but something that she kind of like read from him in like a Force kind of way of like, oh, these are literally all the beats that are going in the back of your mind right now, and I can read that from you in a very subtle way. And
So cool.
there were little moments like that in the first episode and even the second episode. I forget what specifically. There's like an interaction with Obi-Wan that I was like, that's, you know, people are kind of upset like that she's acting more adult than a 10-year-old would act, but it's like, all right, well, it's Leia Organa. She's a senator's daughter. She's also like force sensitive, you know, like that's why I was sold on it, and like why I absolutely love how they're adapting her as like a 10-year-old version of Leia. But yeah, I loved that moment too of like her kind of putting the pieces together of like, oh, I might be one of those force sensitive kids. Oh no.
I'm in danger. Yeah. Another little thing like that, like Saige, you were talking about her asking what the Force feels like, which I love that type of lore building stuff. But also Obi-Wan talking about being taken from his family and talking about like I think I had a brother, like that. It's so dark, and you know the Jedi are the good guys. Like the whole episode 3, like there's heroes and villains on both sides or whatever. It's like, damn man, like. The Jedi were taking people from their families, and in some cases that was a good thing and could help them get out of slavery in the case of Anakin. Yeah. But it sounds like in most cases it is just you're a force sensitive kid and you're going to be taken away and like to the point that you don't know that you have a brother. Like you think you did, you know? So I thought that hit real hard. And I think that idea is the biggest surprise to me from the show so far, where it is that level of look at Obi-Wan and who he is as a person, and not just who he is as a Jedi, and who he is in relation to helping apprentices or Luke under him, but actually like who he is deeper. And like we don't really get that in live action. Like he's always kind of just been the middle management of the whatever the heroes are that we're getting. And I know that, you know, Clone Wars handles that differently, but live action wise, I think that it's really cool to get that. Clearly, we're going to get that in a show called Obi Wan Kenobi, but we didn't get that about Boba Fett in a show called Boba Fett. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that this show is highlighting the realities of the Empire and the realities of the life of Jedis in a way that this only, I think, Obi Wan Kenobi show can, which is where it lands for me. And it is still landing for me as my favorite Star Wars television.
That's exciting stuff.
I'm kind of on the same kind of beat with you, even though there's, you know, some things in this episode where I was like, but like I still overall like really adored it. Like you said, I think like the kind of chase scene episode that this was, I think it was done really well. I just want to shout out a couple of lines that were said that felt like so over the top, kind of like tropey of, you know, actions speak louder than words from Tala, where I was like, I loved it in that moment where I was like, oh, that's so fucking cheesy, but like you got me there. Shout out to Net B as well. I really liked Net B, even though like he had absolutely no personality because he literally like couldn't talk or anything, but I loved that droid design. And then also
I love him. The action speaks louder than words. Like all the shots of him with the thing behind his head. And
with the hammer and stuff like that.
I thought that was so beautifully done because he spoke without speaking. Like he literally did what she just said. I thought that was very, very cool.
The other thing is you should have killed me when you had the chance. And you know, my pop punk you know, buddies out there will know there's like when Vader said that, A Day to Remember just started playing in the back of my head, and I was like, that's where we're going right now, Vader. All right, like we're going full emo kid. Okay. And I just thought that was hilarious. But yeah, the one question I think I have left, just going through my notes, is you know, you see Reva kind of discover the path's kind of hidden room, which I definitely think because they've set that up, like we're gonna see the path and kind of other stuff going forward in the next couple of years. Whether that's like Bad Batch or maybe even Jedi Fallen Survivor, stuff like that. Reva goes into that room and she sees all these messages from different Jedi. She's looking at the symbol. I don't remember, like that looks like just like the kind of like generic Star Wars Jedi symbol, right? When they do advertisements of just like the light side and stuff like that. And she gets angry, and the way it read to me in that moment almost was that like, because we know like how it was set up in, I think the second episode where the Grand Inquisitors, like you came to us from like the sewers or the gutters or something like that. So my assumption is that there was a time where she was hiding before she joined up with the Empire and stuff like that. And that moment, because of that moment read to me of like almost like this hint of jealousy that while she was in hiding, she didn't get to like find these type of people to like help her in a way. Like the way that she walks away from that and like how angry she is felt less of like, oh, they got away and stuff like that. And it was more of just like this, why the fuck wasn't this there for me when I was lost, right?
Yes, I agree.
That was interesting. So I was wondering what you guys felt about that.
I love Reva. I think she's incredible. I think that her performance has been absolutely phenomenal. And I agree that there's a lot of depth to it where it leaves me with so many cool questions. And I agree, the feeling that I'm getting is no one helped me. And how dare they? How dare you try to convince me that the Jedi are the good guys when they did this to me? They took me from my family, which we're learning is, you know, a huge part of this. And then look what happened, right?
Yeah,
I think that's very interesting.
Heartbreaking. I can't wait to learn, like, actually, like, the you know, there's got to be another flashback scene. We got to kind of, like, see the follow-up to the first scene from the first episode, right? And I can't wait to kind of, like, fully see that and get her full side of things, which will be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we're in an interesting place now, halfway through the show. We have 3 episodes left, and I feel like it kind of seems to me like a lot of the plot is already like out of the way, and I just feel like I'm hoping we don't just get caught in a loop of like chase scene after chase scene after chase scene.
Now it's going to be
I hope we got character sit with it a little bit more, which is interesting for a show that like All In has been pretty slow, but I think they're deliberately using that to do something different. And so far, I think it's really working out. So I'm super excited. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about the rematch. Part 1. I imagine there'll be the part 2 that they've been teasing as well. Hopefully it goes a little bit better for our boy. But let us know if they do end up in a back to tank and we get some flashbacks. What do you want to see? What do you want to see from the flashbacks there? And hopefully Carboni will join us next week. But
and
Saige,
hopefully next week we can talk about Dex with him. I just want to see our boy Dex. Hashtag bring back Dex, okay?
Come on, figure it out. Saige, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at NotSage or at Pixel Circus on Twitch, where I host a show with Anthony and play a bunch of D&D and stuff.
You'll love to see it. Until next time, love you guys. Bye.